Hi everyone, my name is Mina Watts, and this is the first year that I had beginner ELs in my classroom. I really didn't know what to do with them at first because I couldn't really communicate with them that well, and kind of just talked to Nellie and figured out some things that helped my particular group of kids this year. So I thought I'd share a few of those things with you. So this is what Nellie told me when I first came to her about what exactly am I supposed to do here? I feel very lost. And she said beginners or first year ELs can receive any service the teacher feels they need for them to feel successful. And so once I started thinking about it in terms of, well, how do they feel that they're doing with this language and learning this language? That was a little bit easier for me to grasp rather than expecting them to be up to par with kids that have spoken English their whole lives, or being able to do exactly the same work, and how I would present that to them. So this actually really brought me a lot of comfort. I felt a lot less like I was failing once I started looking at it in terms of, well, if they felt successful today, then I didn't fail. So how can we make beginner ELs feel successful? The first thing is true for all kids, and I don't have to tell anybody this, least of all people that are probably way more experienced than me, but it really helped at first to just focus on connecting with them on a personal level. Because if they feel like they know us, they'll want to work for us. And I mean, this is true of all kids, and especially this year, I felt like there was more emphasis on this from admin and from everybody because a lot of kids are virtual and still are virtual. And it's a lot harder to form that relationship when they're not there in the classroom. So this was no different for the beginner ELs, all of which mine started virtually. And then a couple of them came and one's still learning virtually. And it is truly a lot harder to help him at home than it is to help the kids that are in my classroom. But having that personal bond with them really kind of set the stage for them to later want to do other things for me. So I also found that I like the virtual model we're using because they can do their independent work time and they are a lot more self-paced. So I end up giving them a little more social time at the end of class with their classmates, and that's really where a lot of their learning happened. And I realized like sometimes the most important parts of class for them happened after I was done with any instruction and without me even being part of it because they were talking to other kids. Of course, they were playing Among Us, and they were talking to other kids, and I had them put the code on the board so that everybody could join in because I thought, hey, that's a great way to use conversational English. So just kind of seeing if you can get them involved in a friend group in the class because they want to communicate, so they find a way to communicate. And really, I feel like with mine, their English has gotten so much better just because they mimic what the other kids are saying. So modifying when possible, and this year we're really pressed for time. We really don't have a ton of extra time. In fact, it seems like we have less time than we ever had. And so it's really hard to modify things ahead of time. But like I found that going for understanding the big idea rather than having them all follow all the directions exactly, which is not really a realistic expectation, was really key for them to be able to feel successful. And so, for example, if we were studying plot in ELA, having them understand a few of the plot elements like exposition and the rising action, climax, falling action, those kinds of things, and knowing just what that is, being able to identify it versus expecting them to analyze a story for those parts of plot like the other kids might be doing who have heard all these words and meanings for years. It was really a more realistic expectation of the ELs to maybe give them a very basic grasp of what plot is and maybe a few elements. And so it wasn't necessarily modifying the entire assignment, but modifying the expectation of what they might do with it. That seemed to be the key. And then also reducing the quantity of reading that's required because they just seemed really discouraged seeing this amount of text on a page just kind of staring at them. And so if I was able to, I could cut down the text ahead of time and give them a shortened version, or I would just do a little more explaining than normal and read it out loud or provide them with some kind of audio, especially if it was a test, because we usually already have some kids doing oral admin and just letting them use that, which is okay. The fourth thing was modeling. So modeling is a big benefit to my particular kids. And so demonstrating skills like annotation and answer elimination and stuff. And Nellie gave me that really good advice, especially when it came to our first test. I had some kids really discouraged. And so the next thing we took was a CDB. And I made a video of me, using my Elmo and just going through, drawing some stop lines like Leanne King tells us to do, like chunking the text and then giving them a note card or cardstock or something to cover up the different parts so they're not staring at that huge, intimidating bulk of text. And then they can do the exact same annotations that you wrote, and they're practicing writing their annotations. So they're practicing the skill. They're not necessarily doing the analysis yet because maybe they don't have the language for that, but at least they're practicing these skills that once they have more language under their belt will come in really, really handy. The fifth thing was substituting for activities that require more advanced language knowledge. And so one big time that happened for me was when they took the revising and editing CDB recently. So I looked at it and it was like combining sentences and conjunctions and things like that. Things that a more advanced English learner, things that kids that spoke English their whole life still don't know, let's be honest, would be hard for them. So it would have been impossible for my ELs. And when I spoke to Nellie, she said it would probably just be extremely frustrating. And so instead, I just found, and they were ready made. I mean, I just found some activities that they could do. One was on end punctuation, something kind of basic but still useful, and addressing those grammar tics. And the other one I think was common and proper nouns. And so it was something that I knew that they had the capability to do, but it was something that wouldn't cause them such extreme frustration that they would just give up. So recognizing when they reach their limit, looking for signs of frustration, having them take a break because we don't want them to give up entirely. And in the first test that I gave, the first cold read test we gave this year, I had one of my students, and I didn't realize that I could modify it yet, or that I could cut down the text, or that I could change anything for him. So I gave them the same test. I encouraged them to do their best, kind of gave them some strategies. But I looked over and his head was in his hands. And so I walked over and asked him if he was okay. And he was sobbing. He was like quietly sobbing into his hands. And it was like, I mean, it broke your heart to see it. And so, I told him to just stop and to close his Chromebook and not worry about it for that day. And that's the day that I really went seeking Nellie's help, because this was at the beginning of the 9 weeks. And she gave me a lot of good information. And I realized, I really do need to do something before they get to that point, because it risks them coming back and not wanting to try again. And that's the last thing that anybody wants. One thing that was kind of fun was sort of letting them be the experts. And so, I mean, I know a fair amount of Spanish, so I can kind of hang when it comes to understanding Spanish. But, they would teach me new words, my students that are from Mexico. And then I have one from Vietnam. And so I started trying to learn some Vietnamese, and he thought it was so funny. But actually, he told me I said a lot of words almost perfect. That's what he said. And so, and a couple of them, like hello and goodbye, I really got down pretty well. And so it's just that kind of letting them be their own, that the expert for once, because we're the expert in our subject area. Everybody likes to feel knowledgeable. And so letting them teach us and kind of reversing the roles, it really helps with that personal connection, and it makes them feel not confused or frustrated for a minute, so that they can be the expert and teach you something. And I just thought that was something fun that really brought us a little closer together. And then the last thing, man, Google Translate is like the best thing. And most of them already know they can use it. But I started using it with my student from Vietnam in academic coaching, and it has been so helpful. And usually I don't think he's super excited for me to, like, I wouldn't use it if we were in class and pull it up on my screen share just for him, because I think that would embarrass him. But usually he's one of the few kids at my academic coaching. He's there religiously. And so I'll pull it up if there's something that I'm not able to get across the meaning of it through all my wild like gestures that I'm doing on Zoom, trying to act out all the words, and probably just making him laugh. But I'll pull up Google Translate. Like, we were trying to look up the word match, and it was like a perfect match. We were trying to find a replacement goldfish, or a perfect match for the goldfish. And so I put in match, and he, of course, it translated it to something like a competition, like a tennis match. And so he was trying to tell me one version of match, and I was trying to get him to know another because there was a dictionary entry. And we ended up laughing about it, and we ended up figuring it out because I put some other synonyms that meant match, and it translated those to the meaning that I was trying to get at. But the translator really is an invaluable resource, and I've been using that a lot. So basically, what I got from talking to Nellie and other people who've been in this position where they don't really know how to best help beginner ELs is that anything that makes them want to come back the next day and keep trying is good. So whether that's something on a personal level or something that is, an actual modification or something academic that you do for them. But I mean, the biggest things are just really like a smile really goes a long way, and a safe environment where they feel like they can do things. That's probably what they'll remember about us. That's probably what they'll remember about their first experiences with English. And we want that to be something good that sticks with them. And so we really do what we already do, which is just love them and try to support them in whatever they're doing. So I hope this was helpful. I don't feel in any position to be giving advice, honestly, because I was just asking these questions of Nellie a few weeks ago. But those are some things that have helped me so far in the classroom. And I wanted to say thanks to Nellie for always kind of guiding me anytime I just email her these random questions at 11:30 at night about EL. So thanks, Nellie, and I hope this is helpful to other teachers that are trying to support their EL students in the classroom.